We had a process in place. We made a promise for 2 months that we would make them do it without our help, and we folded, and I hate that. We're in a hole. We got to dig out of this hole, and we can. We shot ourselves in the foot tonight, but we'll revisit this issue in December.
Yo, Lindsey Graham is hilarious. He's probably one of my favorite personalities in Washington. No, he's not my favorite politician. I'm just saying personality, right? Like, he's just a funny dude for reasons that I'm not really going to get into in this video, but I just want to point that out. Lindsey Graham is just a hilarious dude to me. He's just hilarious. But yes, guys, Lindsey Graham went on Hannity basically to say that Mitch McConnell folded. That's right, Mitch McConnell folded on pressuring the Democrats to use reconciliation to increase the debt limit, right? Because that was supposed to be the plan. However, in order to avoid a government shutdown that would be catastrophic, the Senate passed a short-term debt ceiling bill, funding the country into December after Mitch McConnell said, you know what, maybe we'll help you guys in the short term here in regards to avoiding a potential financial crisis. Now, again, this comes as there's been a lot of chess going on in Washington and corporate America getting involved with this because the markets, if you guys haven't noticed, over the past few days have been very, very volatile. One of the reasons why it's been volatile is because the deadline to increase the debt limit was coming up, right? And if this country can't pay its bills, then the market will basically crash, and it would send ripple effects throughout the world's economy. Wouldn't be good for the CEOs, right? So when the CEOs step in and say, look, guys, we appreciate the games that you guys playing, but we can't have this, right? Y'all got to come to some agreement. When the CEOs tell the politicians to step in line, they step in line and they get things done, right? It's all fun and games until big corporate America wants something done. Guys, I'm not sure if you noticed, but that's a pattern, right? When corporate America wants something done, the politicians move. Why? Because they're bought and sold. So the question is, did Mitch McConnell actually fold? Well, it depends on what you think Mitch McConnell's actual goal was. But let's read here about what's happening, and then I'm going to tell you guys my opinion on whether or not McConnell actually folded. After much drama, last-minute decisions, and finally an agreed-upon deal between Republicans and Democrats, the Senate passed an extension of the debt limit, avoiding a default on the national debt last night. The agreement allows the national debt limit to increase by $480 billion, according to people familiar with the deal. A source the Treasury Department estimates will allow it to pay its bill until December 3rd, CNBC reports. All right, so that's important to note, guys. The reason why is because usually when politicians increase the debt ceiling, essentially they're extending it for a period of time, not by a set dollar amount. This deal is different, right? The deal that McConnell negotiated with the Democrats was that, hey, you know what? We'll give you guys some breathing room so you can argue a little bit more, right? And fight each other, just like what's happening between Bernie Sanders, Kirsten Sinema, and Joe Manchin. However, we're going to give you a set dollar amount. We're only going to give you enough money to make it for the next couple of months. And the Democrats said, we'll take that deal, right? So again, that's important to note that this is slightly different than what usually happens, which again is playing into what McConnell's strategy here is. This last move came just 11 days before the U.S. hit its debt ceiling. We now estimate that the Treasury is likely to exhaust its extraordinary measures if Congress has not acted to raise or suspend the debt limit by October 18th, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said last month. The Wall Street Journal reports that 11 Republicans joined all 50 Democrats in a vote to break the 60-vote filibuster threshold and proceed to final passage of the measure, which cleared the Senate 50-48 with 2 Republican absences. All right, so I am going to show you guys a picture of all the Republicans that voted to increase the debt limit, right? Or basically allow the Democrats to vote on increasing the debt limit. As you can see, McConnell was on board with breaking his own filibuster, right? Again, Washington politics is fascinating. The bill now goes to the House, where House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said lawmakers could be called back from recess for a October 12th vote. The White House said President Biden would sign the bill, according to the Wall Street Journal. Schumer spoke on the Senate floor in advance of the package of legislation last evening, saying that, quote, "What is needed now is a long-term solution so we don't go through this risky drama every few months, and we hope Republicans will join in on enacting a long-term solution to the debt limit in December. We are ready to work with them." Quote, "This is a temporary but necessary and important fix. I appreciate that at the end of the day, we were able to raise the debt limit without a convoluted and unnecessary reconciliation process that until today the Republican leader claimed was the only way to address the debt limit," he added, according to the transcript in his speech. As for McConnell, he also delivered remarks on the Senate floor regarding the debt limit, saying that, quote, "The majority didn't have a plan to prevent default, so we stepped forward. The pathway our Democrat colleagues have accepted will spare the American people any near-term crisis, while definitely resolving the majority's excuse that they lack the time to address the debt limit through the 304 reconciliation process," he added, according to a transcript of his speech. Boy, McConnell's a hilarious dude too, bro. The way this man plays politics is so fascinating to me. This is why I studied him out, okay? Because he's a fascinating character. Now, the question is, did Mitch McConnell fold? Because everybody, including Republicans and Democrats, are accusing Mitch McConnell of folding. And the answer to that question depends on what you thought Mitch McConnell's real intentions were here. Let me explain. So what Mitch McConnell, at least on paper, the Republican strategy was to force the Democrats to use reconciliation on increasing the debt limit, right? That way they can't use reconciliation on the $3.5 trillion plan, right? That socialist spending package. So what was happening is that as we got closer to that October 18th deadline, there was going to be more and more pressure put on the Democrats to actually increase the debt limit, because Republicans was like, hey, we're just not going to go along with this. So you guys got to do it on your own. The only way they can do it on their own is through reconciliation. Now, Democrats were saying that reconciliation was not an option because it's a super lengthy process and that the vote-a-rama would take so long and blah, 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 this, that, and the other, right? Now, the Democrats are stuck between a rock and a hard place here because Mitch McConnell had them in check, but they weren't actually in checkmate. It is very hard to checkmate somebody in Washington. There's always a counter move. So the counter move that the Democrats were considering was to essentially modify the filibuster rules to carve out an exemption for increasing the debt limit, which would basically help them bypass Mitch McConnell's filibuster, right? By basically voting to remove it for the debt ceiling. Now, this is something that even Joe Biden went out there and said, hey, we're considering doing this in response to Mitch McConnell refusing to work with us. Take a look.
Democrats considering using a nuclear option to raise the debt limit, using a carve-out with the filibuster to raise the debt limit?
Oh, I think that's a real possibility.
Now, keep in mind, guys, in order for the Democrats to get rid of the filibuster in regards to the debt ceiling, they still need all 50 votes from Democrats in the Senate. However, Joe Manchin has come out and basically said in response to the whole filibuster conversation that, you know what, I don't think I would be on board with getting rid of it.
But Ed, you will just 100% not agree to a carve out of the filibuster
No,
to
we're
do
not
the
going
debt
to do
ceiling.
that at all, guys. I mean, the filibuster is the only thread that we have to keep democracy alive and well in America.
All right, guys, so as you can see that's Joe Manchin saying, look, I'm not really trying to get rid of the filibuster to increase the debt limit, right? To do it without the Republicans. However, he did say he was open to using reconciliation, which is a major kind of difference between the other Democrats and what they want, right? Now, here's the problem with this, right? And this is Mitch McConnell's problem too, is that right now, Mitch McConnell is hanging on the lifeline of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema standing their ground, standing up to the Democrats. However, if Mitch McConnell kind of allowed this whole debt ceiling thing to continue, right, up until October 18th, what would happen is that there would be enormous pressure on Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to get rid of the filibuster to increase the debt limit, right? Now, some people may say, well, what's wrong with just letting them do that, right? What's wrong with putting pressure on them to do that? Well, the issue is that if they fold on that, right? Remember, politics is like a domino effect, right? Precedence matters. If Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema folded on that, right? They folded on getting rid of the filibuster. right, and decided to do it for the debt limit, in the future, the progressives in the base are now going to say, wait, you guys got rid of the filibuster for the debt limit. Why can't you just get rid of filibuster, period? Forget these Republicans. Forget trying to work with them. We should just go ahead and get rid of the filibuster, period. You guys did it before for the debt ceiling. Why can't you do it for the voting rights, the increase the minimum wage, reconciliation bill, universal health care? All that stuff now comes into play, right? If Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema folds on that, okay? So McConnell doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want them to come under too much pressure. And in my opinion, this is why he shifted his strategy towards saying, you know what, listen, what we'll do is that we'll give the Democrats more time to argue, because that's what they're doing right now. They're arguing, right? They're going back and forth with each other in the media about this $3.5 trillion package that they can't agree on. And that works out in the Republicans' favor because it makes it look like the Democrats, they can't get anything done, right? This is good for the Republicans if the Democrats keep arguing, right? So in regards to the question of whether or not Mitch McConnell folded, the answer would be yes if you believe that the actual intention was to just allow the U.S. to default. I don't think that that's McConnell's intentions. I don't think that any Republicans really would have let that happen. However, if you believe they were actually willing to stick with their guns, yes, he folded. But in my opinion, I think this is more of a shift in strategy because, listen, I mean, if the Republicans were to actually let the Democrats just go and default, right, on the debt, they're going to take the blame for it, right? The media has already painted this picture that, well, the Republicans are the reason why this country might default, why we might get into this financial crisis. They're already saying that. Okay, so you guys got to keep in mind, this is a game with the media as well. It's not just a game with the Democrats. It's a game with the media and perception. Okay, I think McConnell realized that, hey, you know what? If we give the Democrats more time, they get rid of that excuse that, well, this was rushed and that the Republicans are in the way. No, you guys have time to argue with each other about how you want to increase the debt limit, which can be done through reconciliation. It can be done through multiple avenues, right? So come December 3rd, if this is still an issue, now you can't blame the Republicans anymore because we gave y'all an opportunity to do it. We gave you guys an opportunity to work it out. Now, there's some Republicans that are saying that, well, the Democrats are just going to threaten the filibuster again come December 3rd if they can't get their way. However, I mean, listen, here's the thing. Like everything in politics, the filibuster is a double-edged sword. McConnell might not necessarily want to get rid of it now, but the Democrats getting rid of it in the future could come back to haunt them, especially if the Republicans win next year in Congress, right? If they win back the House and the Senate, the filibuster comes back to haunt them because now Democrats can't block Republican priorities from getting through the House and the Senate, which would force them and Joe Biden to take votes on things they don't want to take votes on, right? Biden would have to veto Republican legislation that's going to make him look really, really bad. Okay, so just getting rid of the filibuster is not necessarily a trump card for the Democrats. It just depends on how you feel about things happening in the future. Everything in politics is a double-edged sword. So in my opinion, I see the argument for why people are saying that Mitch McConnell folded, but I really don't think he ever intended to let the Democrats default on the debt. He don't want that to happen. None of the Republicans want that to happen. What they really want to happen is for the Democrats to waste reconciliation on increasing the debt limit. That's what they really want. But ultimately, at the day, they only have so much control over the Democrat negotiations and Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. So I believe that a lot of this stuff is negotiated behind the scenes with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, and Mitch McConnell is there to help them stand their ground against the Democrats while they continue to drag out this process. Okay? So I think that's what's actually going on here. It's a lot more complicated than what people are saying. And I think there's a lot more strategy here from McConnell than what people are letting on. But I definitely see why people are upset saying that Mitch McConnell folded. I 100% get that argument. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.